Section 39 of The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Elizabeth Buchanan. The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1 by Cao Xueqin. Translated by Henry Bencraft Joly. Chapter 17, Part 3. Chia Cheng, after this recital, nodded his head. "This is still worse," he remarked. But as he reproved him, he led the company outside, and winding past the mound, they penetrated among flowers, and wending their steps by the willows, they touched the rocks and lingered by the stream. Passing under the trellis with yellow roses, they went into the shed with white roses. They crossed by the pavilion with peonies, and walked through the garden where the white peony grew, and entering the court with the cinnamon roses, they reached the island of bananas. As they meandered and zigzagged, suddenly they heard the rustling sound of the water as it came from a stone cave, from the top of which grew parasitic plants drooping downwards, while at its bottom floated the fallen flowers. "What a fine sight!" they all exclaimed. "What beautiful scenery!" "Gentlemen," observed Chia Cheng, "what name do you propose for this place?" "There's no further need for deliberation," the company rejoined, "for this is just the very spot fit for the three words, Wu Ling Spring." "This too is matter of fact," Chia Cheng objected laughingly, "and likewise antiquated." "If that won't do," the party smiled, "well then, what about the four characters implying, 'an old cottage of a man of the Ch'in dynasty'?" "This is still more exceedingly plain," interposed Pao-yü. "The old cottage of a man of the Ch'in dynasty is meant to imply a retreat from revolution, and how will it suit this place? Wouldn't the four characters be better denoting 'an isthmus with smart weed, and a stream with flowers'?" When Chia Cheng heard these words, he exclaimed, "You're talking still more stuff and nonsense!" and forthwith entering the grotto, Chia Cheng went on to ask of Chia Chen, "Are there any boats or not?" "There are to be," replied Chia Chen, "4 boats in all, from which to pick the lotus, and 1 boat for sitting in, but they haven't now as yet been completed." "What a pity," Chia Cheng answered smilingly, "that we cannot go in!" "But we could also get into it by the tortuous path up the hill," Chia Chen ventured; and after finishing this remark, he walked ahead to show the way, and the whole party went over, holding on to the creepers and supporting themselves by the trees, when they saw a still larger quantity of fallen leaves on the surface of the water, and the stream itself, still more limpid, gently and idly meandering along on its circuitous course. By the bank of the pond were 2 rows of weeping willows, which, intermingling with peach and apricot trees, screened the heavens from view, and kept off the rays of the sun from this spot, which was in real truth devoid of even a grain of dust. Suddenly they espied in the shade of the willows an arched wooden bridge also reveal itself to the eye, with banisters of vermilion colour. They crossed the bridge, and lo! all the paths lay open before them, but their gaze was readily attracted by a brick cottage spotless and cool looking, whose walls were constructed of polished bricks of uniform colour, whose roof was laid with speckless tiles, and whose enclosing walls were painted, while the minor slopes which branched off from the main hill, all passed along under the walls on to the other side. "This house, and a site like this, is perfectly destitute of any charm," added Chia Cheng. And as they entered the door, abruptly appeared facing them a large boulder studded with holes, and soaring high in the skies, which was surrounded on all 4 sides by rocks of every description, and completely, in fact, hid from view the rooms situated in the compound. But of flowers or trees there was not even one about, and all that was visible were a few strange kinds of vegetation, some being of the creeper genus, others parasitic plants, either hanging from the apex of the hill, or inserting themselves into the base of the rocks, drooping down even from the eaves of the house, entwining the pillars, enclosing round the stone steps; or like green bands they waved and flapped; or like gold thread they coiled and bent, either with seeds resembling cinnabar, or with blossoms like golden olea, whose fragrance and aroma could not be equalled by those emitted by flowers of ordinary species. "This is pleasant!" Chia Cheng could not refrain from saying. "The only thing is that I don't know very much about flowers." "What are here are lianas and ficus pumila," some of the company observed. "However can the liana and the ficus have such unusual scent?" questioned Chia Cheng.
"Indeed they aren't," interposed Pao-yü. "Among all these flowers, there are also ficus and liana, but those scented ones are iris, ligulare and wu flowers. That kind consist for the most part of Chia flowers and orchids, while this mostly of gold coloured dolichos. That species is the hypericum plant, this the Yu Lu creeper. The red ones are, of course, the purple rue. The green ones consist for certain of the green Chih plant, and, to the best of my belief, these various plants are mentioned in the Li Sao and Wen Suan. These rare plants are, some of them, called something or other like Ho Na and Chiang Hui; others again are designated something like Lun Tzu and Tzu Fang; while others there are whose names sound like Shi Fan, Xue Song and Fu Liu, which together with other species are to be found in the treatise about the Wu city by Tso Tsai Cheng. There are also those which go under the appellation of Lu Ti, or something like that; while there are others that are called something or other like Tan Qiao, Mi Wu and Feng Lian, reference to which is made in the treatise on the Shu city. But so many years have now elapsed, and the times have so changed since these treatises were written, that people, being unable to discriminate the real names, may consequently have had to appropriate in every case such names as suited the external aspect, so that they may, it is quite possible, have gradually come to be called by the wrong designations."
But he had no time to conclude, for Chia Cheng interrupted him. "Who has ever asked you about it?" he shouted, which plunged Pao-yü into such a fright that he drew back and did not venture to utter another word. Chia Cheng, perceiving that on both sides alike were covered passages resembling outstretched arms, forthwith continued his steps and entered the covered way, when he caught sight at the upper end of a 5-roomed building, without spot or blemish, with folding blinds extending in a connected line, and with corridors on all 4 sides; a building which, with its windows so green and its painted walls, excelled in spotless elegance the other buildings they had seen before, to which it presented such a contrast. Chia Cheng heaved a sigh. "If one were able," he observed, "to boil his tea and thrum his lyre in here, there wouldn't even be any need for him to burn any more incense. But the execution of this structure is so beyond conception that you must, gentlemen, compose something nice and original to embellish the tablet with, so as not to render such a place of no effect." "There's nothing so really pat," suggested the company smiling, "as the orchid smell laden breeze and the dew bedecked epidendrum." "These are indeed the only 4 characters," rejoined Chia Cheng, "that could suitably be used. But what's to be said as far as the scroll goes?" "I've thought of a couplet," interposed one of the party, "which you'll all have to criticise and put into ship shape. Its burden is this: The musk-like epidendrum's smell enshrouds the court, where shines the sun with oblique beams. The iris fragrance is wafted over the isle illumed by the moon's clear rays." "As far as excellence is concerned, it's excellent," observed the whole party. "But the 2 words representing 'with oblique beams' are not felicitous." And as some one quoted the line from an old poem: "The Angelica fills the court with tears, what time the sun doth slant." "Lugubrious! Lugubrious!" expostulated the company with one voice. Another person then interposed: "I also have a couplet, whose merits you, gentlemen, can weigh. It runs as follows: Along the 3 pathways doth float the Yue Hui scented breeze. the radiant moon in the whole hall shines on the gold orchid." Chia Cheng tugged at his moustache and gave way to meditation. He was just about also to suggest a stanza, when, upon suddenly raising his head, he espied Pao-yü standing by his side, too timid to give vent to a single sound. "How is it," he purposely exclaimed, "that when you should speak, you contrariwise don't? Is it likely that you expect some one to request you to confer upon us the favour of your instruction?" "In this place," Pao-yü rejoined at these words, "there are no such things as orchids, musk, resplendent moon, or islands; and were one to begin quoting such specimens of allusion to scenery, 200 couplets could be readily given without even then having been able to exhaust the supply." "Who presses your head down," Chia Cheng urged, "and uses force that you must come out with all these remarks?" "Well, in that case," added Pao-yü, "there are no fitter words to put on the tablet than the four representing the fragrance pure of the ligularia and iris; while the device on the scroll might be: sung is the nutmeg's song, but beauteous still is the sonnet; near the Tu mei to sleep makes e'en a dream with fragrance full." "This is," laughed Chia Cheng sneeringly, "an imitation of the line: 'A book when it is made of plantain leaves, the writing green is also bound to be,' so that there's nothing remarkable about it." "Lin Tai-yü, in his work on the Phoenix Terrace," protested the whole party, "copied in every point the Huang Hua Lu; but what's essential is a faultless imitation. Now were we to begin to criticise minutely the couplet just cited, we would indeed find it to be, as compared with the line 'a book when it is made of plantain leaves,' still more elegant and of wider application." "What an idea!" observed Chia Cheng derisively. But as he spoke, the whole party walked out. But they had not gone very far before they caught sight of a majestic summer house, towering high peak like, and of a structure rising loftily with story upon story; and completely locked in as they were on every side, they were as beautiful as the jade palace. Far and wide, road upon road coiled and wound, while the green pines swept the eaves, the jady epidendrum encompassed the steps, the animals' faces glistened like gold, and the dragons' heads shone resplendent in their variegated hues. "This is the main hall," remarked Chia Cheng. "The only word against it is that there's a little too much finery." "It should be so," rejoined one and all, "so as to be what it's intended to be. The imperial consort has, it is true, an exalted preference for economy and frugality, but her present honourable position requires the observance of such courtesies, so that finery is no fault." As they made these remarks and advanced on their way the while, they perceived just in front of them an archway project to view, constructed of jade-like stone, at the top of which the coils of large dragons and the scales of small dragons were executed in perforated style. "What's the device to be for this spot?" inquired Chia Cheng. "It should be fairyland," suggested all of them, "so as to be apposite." Chia Cheng nodded his head and said nothing; but as soon as Pao-yü caught sight of the spot, something was suddenly aroused in his heart, and he began to ponder within himself: "This place really resembles something that I've seen somewhere or other." But he could not at the moment recall to mind what year, moon or day this had happened. Chia Cheng bade him again propose a motto, but Pao-yü was bent upon thinking over the details of the scenery he had seen on a former occasion, and gave no thought whatever to this place, so that the whole company were at a loss what construction to give his silence, and came simply to the conclusion that, after the bullying he had had to put up with for ever so long, his spirits had completely vanished, his talents become exhausted, and his speech impoverished, and that if he were harassed and pressed, he might perchance, as the result of anxiety, contract some ailment or other, which would of course not be a suitable issue, and they lost no time in combining together to dissuade Chia Cheng. "Never mind," they said, "to morrow will do to compose some device; let's drop it now." Chia Cheng himself was inwardly afraid lest dowager lady Chia should be anxious, so that he hastily remarked as he forced a smile: "You beast!
there are, after all, also occasions on which you are no good. But never mind, I'll give you 1 day to do it in, and if by to morrow you haven't been able to compose anything, I shall certainly not let you off. This is the first and foremost place, and you must exercise due care in what you write."
Saying this, he sallied out at the head of the company and cast another glance at the scenery. Indeed, from the time they had entered the gate up to this stage, they had just gone over 5 or 6 tenths of the whole ground, when it happened again that a servant came and reported that some one had arrived from Mr. Yü Ts'un's to deliver a message.
"These several places which remain," Chia Cheng observed with a smile, "we have no time to pass under inspection, but we might as well nevertheless go out at least by that way, as we shall be able to a certain degree to have a look at the general aspect."
With these words, he showed the way for the family companions, until they reached a large bridge, with water entering under it, looking like a curtain made of crystal. This bridge, the fact is, was the dam which communicated with the river outside, and from which the stream was introduced into the grounds.
"What's the name of this water gate?"
Chia Cheng inquired. "This is," replied Pao-yü, "the main stream of the Hsin Fang river. It is therefore called the Hsin Fang water gate."
"Nonsense!" exclaimed Chia Cheng. "The 2 words Hsin Fang must on no account be used."
And as they speedily advanced on their way, they either came across elegant halls or thatched cottages, walls made of piled up stone, or gates fashioned of twisted plants, either a secluded nunnery or Buddhist fane, at the foot of some hill, or some unsullied houses hidden in a grove, tenanted by rationalistic priestesses, either extensive corridors and winding grottoes, or square buildings and circular pavilions. But Chia Cheng had not the energy to enter any of these places, for as he had not any rest for ever so long, his legs felt shaky and his feet weak. Section 39.